Hello, good evening. Happy Wednesday. Hello, DKs. Awesome. And thank you, dude. Thank you. Man, yeah. I should get a newer dictionary. I have an older dictionary right now. Um, so today I'm getting into a new book, and it is called The Waking Dream: Unlocking the Symbolic Language of Our Lives by Ray Grasse. Boop. Yeah. So we're just going to get into the intro and see where it takes us. Oh, son of a gun, I need glasses. I got water. Okay, better good. Here's some glasses here. Let me just clean them off a little. For Judith. All right. Acknowledgements. During the more than 12 years spent writing and researching this book, many people provided helpful support and feedback. I wish to here express my deepest gratitude to all of them, including my parents, Catherine and Raymond Grasse, John Cranich, David Fiddler, Alice O'Howell, David Frawley, Peggy Firestone, Rick Tarnas, Jody Pirro, Shirley Nicholson, George and Linda Gawor, Gary Lockman, Medicine Grizzly Bear Lake, Rosemary Clark, and Scott Korn. Scott Korn. Is he the guy that sells the dowsing rods? Hey, cool gamer. Hey, buddy. Welcome. Welcome. Oh, son of a gun. Look, I forgot to put the a light on. 1 second. I want to turn that on. Especially since it's kind of like gloomy out and like you can see it better. Okay. Do I look like an established businesswoman? I took a shower today. Thank you. I also went to a meeting. Okay. Thanks, buddy. Okay, so back into this, the thank yous and the acknowledgements. Thanks also to Scott Stearns, Tom Chapin, and Ruben Cabicting for their technical support during the later stages. My appreciation to Karen Rybaki for helping me track down the many images with which grace these pages. Ooh, okay, cool. Is this thing going in and out of focus? No? Okay. My boundless gratitude to my editors Brenda Rosen and Virginia Smiley, who proved invaluable in the final shaping and refining of this material, and especially for Brenda's early support in pushing to get it published in the first place. Also to the many others at Quest, who played a role in the production of this work, including Vaja Bremanis, Vaha, Vija, Vija rather, Brahmanis, Nancy Grace, Karen Yates, Dawn Hicks, Patty Hamilton, Pam Demers, and graphic designer Beth Hansen, who skillfully brought it all together. Last but not least, my deepest appreciation to Goswami Kriyananda of Chicago and Shelley Trimmer, without whose insight and generosity of time over the years, this book would not have been possible. Then we've got a picture of the sun. Boop. All right, we've got some quotes here. There is a dream dreaming us. Kalahari Bushman to Lawrence Vanderpost. The wise say that the two states, dream and waking, are one, though in fact the object of waking experience appear as real. Still, they are unreal. Guadalupe. Oh, Guadapata. Recognize this infinite variety of appearances as a dream, as nothing but projections of your mind, illusory and unreal. How do I say your name? Selnatsok Rangrol, Tsele. All right. We are such stuff as dreams are made on. Shakespeare. Our dreams, inasmuch as they originate from us, may well have an analogy with our whole life and fate. How do I say it? Is it go? Goth. Van Gogh. That's actually how you say it, I think. Okay. Is all our life then but a dream? Lewis Carroll. Our life is but one of the dreams of that mere. Our life is but one of the dreams of that more real life, and so it is endlessly, until the very last one, the very real life, the life of God. Tolstoy. Well, yes, one could also say that we are not sitting here drinking tea, but that we're dreaming all that. Niels Bohr. Niles Bohr. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than a great machine. Sir James Jeans. Ooh, okay, so I'm gonna pull up this so I can do a this and show you a this. Bam, look at that. Trying to get some lighting on there. Badass, right? And look, at the beginning of each chapter, we have these really cool, intricate picturized letters, which I think are actually maybe superimposed over this dude on the bottom right here. Cool. Okay. Focus. That's good. Like, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Introductions. Things here are signs. Plotinus. While preparing for his role in the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz, actor Frank Morgan decided against using the costume offered him by the studio for his role as the traveling salesman Professor Marvel, opting instead to select his own wardrobe for the part. Searching through the racks of secondhand clothes collected by MGM Wardrobe Department over the years, he finally settled on an old frock coat that would eventually serve as his costume during filming of the movie. Passing the time one day, Morgan idly turned out the inside of the pocket of the coat and discovered the name L. Frank Baum sewn into the lining of the jacket. As later investigation confirmed, the jacket had been originally designed for the creator of the Oz story, L. Frank Baum, and somehow made its way through the years into the collection of clothing on the MGM lot. Almost everyone, at some time or another, has experienced extraordinary coincidences or synchronicities so startling they are compelled to reflect upon their possible meaning. Do such occurrences hold a deeper significance? Might they hint at a hidden design underlying the seemingly random events unfolding around us? Or are they, as modern science suggests, merely the expression of chance processes completely explainable in terms of statistics and probability theory? Hey, welcome back in. DK is awesome. One way to begin answering such questions is to consider the insights of an ancient worldview. For thousands of years, philosophers and mystics have formulated ideas and esoteric laws that attempted to explain the hidden workings of reality. Seen as a whole, this network of ideas and laws may be designated by the term symbolist, in reference to the many symbolic systems, astrology, tarot, Kabbalah, and others. It has found expression through and as a reference to the broader symbolic vision of reality it reflects. This symbolic perspective is in stark contrast with the more materialistic and literal worldview promoted by contemporary society. Hey, on my business cards, I entitled myself Symbol and Energy Interpreter. Isn't that fun? Cool, right? They're so cool. Okay, sippy sip. Although this body of thought is complex and multifaceted, it is nevertheless possible to identify certain recurring themes among its expressions, which, through different times and cultures, have displayed remarkable consistency. A brief list of these includes the following. All right, this is a little, there's like asterisks. Okay. The world reflects the presence of a greater regulating intelligence or divine mind that both permeates and transcends material reality. The next one is all things partake in a greater continuum of order and design. Consequently, there are no consequences or truly random events. In turn, any chance event or process can divulge greater patterns of meaningfulness within the life of an individual or society. And then reality is multi-leveled in character, involving phenomena and experiences across a wide spectrum of frequencies or vibration. The next one is the world is interwoven by a complex web of subtle correspondences or affinities, secret connections that link seemingly diverse phenomena through a deeper resonance of meaning. And then all phenomena are governed by processes of cyclic change, according to which things arise, grow, and decay. Then we have all forms can be reduced to a basic set of universal principles or archetypes, described in various ways by different traditions. These principles reflect the underlying language of both outer and inner experience. And then lastly, understood at their subtlest level, these archetypes reveal themselves to be an expression of deeper numerological or geometrical principles, also explainable through the concept of proportion or ratio. The golden ratio. Yeah. Yeah, me too. Oh my gosh, it's so awesome. I'm pumped about reading this. In short, the symbolist standpoint considers life to be a living book of symbols, a sacred text that can be decoded. Through applying the proper key, the patterns of the world reveal hidden resonances and levels of information overlooked in our contemporary preoccupation with literal meanings and surface interpretations. This book takes a deeper look at the symbolist worldview and its aspects. It explores the philosophical implications of many of its key ideas and how these ideas have been understood and employed by men and women throughout history. On a more personal level, it offers a number of practical suggestions and examples to help the reader understand the teachings and messages encoded within the people, places, objects, and events experienced each day. Taken together, these approaches provide readers with a set of tools by which to revision their world. It is ironic, perhaps, that our culture accords great honor and prestige to the individual who devotes long years to acquiring higher degrees, while granting none whatsoever to the person who devotes even one day to studying the symbolic language presented by daily experience, the most important and profound text in anyone's world. There is profound value in recovering this traditional perspective. The symbolist way of thinking has deep roots in the human psyche. Its persistence through millennia speaks dramatically to what one writer has called the common human passion for meaning. In an age when many people question seriously whether life may be empty or without significance, the symbolist perspective tells us life is not empty, but is in fact rich in meaning, purpose, and archetypal resonance. Through a study of the varied systems of this ancient way of looking at the world, we can discover the different ways humans have sought to find meaning in their environment and, in turn, learn to unearth the treasures hidden within the seemingly mundane events of our daily lives. Wow, this guy is so good to read. It's like it flows. Maybe I'm just having a good day. Well, I mean, I am having a good day, but sources. Rather than codified in a single text or tradition, the insights of the symbolist worldview are found within the oral and written teachings of esoteric schools around the world, both in the yogic traditions of the East and the Hermetic and Kabbalistic traditions of the West. Excuse me. In addition to a broad study of the published literature in this field, my own work with the subject over the years has led me into discussions with figures from various traditions, some of them well known. Chogyam Trungpa and Joseph Campbell. Okay, I know of Joseph Campbell. but most of them relatively unknown or even obscure. Of particular value is this process. Of particular value in this process has been my 16 years of study with two American born teachers affiliated with the Kriya Yoga tradition, Goswami Kriyananda and of Chicago, and Shelley Trimmer, a direct disciple of Param, Parama, Parama, Mahansa. Okay. Paramahansa Yogananda. Through them, I was afforded access to an oral tradition of great richness and complexity, with roots deep in the esoteric systems of both East and West. Oh, dude, I have this book called Eastern Body, Western Mind. I still haven't read it. I thought about doing that for this, but this one jumped out. The insights of the symbolist worldview. That sort of works too, though, if you just say the insides. The insights of the symbolist worldview is somewhat subtler and more implicit more implicit form are encoded within the great esoteric systems of antiquity, such as astrology, tarot, numerology, and other forms of divination and mantic inquiry. As anyone who has ever worked with these systems knows, each of them contains a unique array of overt and covert insights regarding reality and the psyche, insights that divulge themselves only after extensive use of these systems over many years. This book extrapolates from these systems to provide a broader illumination of the essential principles of symbolist thought. Symbolist ideas can even be detected within the superstitions and folk beliefs of traditional and modern societies. Cultures throughout the world, for example, emphasize the number 7, sometimes called the perfect number. Hey, that's when we went live, and 717 right now. Cultures throughout the world, for example, emphasize the number 7, sometimes called the perfect number, and believe in the reality of omens and portents. Crude as their external form may be at times, such recurring motifs reflect deep-seated patterns of the psyche, and to that extent can sometimes be read for the insight they provide into the greater universe of which the human mind is a reflection. Yet the interest of this book is not simply to provide an objective survey of symbolist thought. Rather, it is to offer a creative synthesis drawing together many of its wide-ranging themes with extrapolations and reflections from my own experience toward the end of imparting a broader sense of its essential vision. A look ahead. This book has been structured so each chapter unlocks a different door into the symbolic point of view. Chapter 1 begins with a look at some of its essential principles, focusing especially on the universal laws described by mystics and philosophers since antiquity as governing the universe. Just as the modern worldview is supported by certain hidden presuppositions which guide and inform it, symbolist philosophy conceals its own underlying presuppositions which characterize its far-ranging beliefs and are therefore essential to a broader understanding of its implications. Chapter 2 steps back to reflect on the historical context of symbolist thinking and its development through time. It points to why such thinking was critical to past cultures and why it has largely disappeared from our own. Chapter 3 presents a way to categorize symbolist events and argues that meaning is not an isolated occurrence in our lives, limited only to the strange and unpredictable coincidence, but extends across the entire horizon of personal experience. Chapter 4 examines one of the most popular forms of meaningful event identified by traditional societies, the omen. It includes a discussion of divination and the practical ways men and women have sought to harness the symbolic dynamics of nature to understand and influence the future. Chapter 5 looks at human relationships. Like an ingeniously conceived script written exclusively for ourselves, when seen through the eyes of symbolist thought, ordinary interactions present us with a rich and multifaceted mirror of our own inner growth. Friend, enemy, spouse, parent, even the nameless passerby on the street, all can be profound teachers in our quest to understand ourselves. Chapters 6 and 7 take a close look at the border forces propelling the unfoldment of our destinies from both the past and future. In these chapters is a discussion of the Eastern notion of karma, or spiritual cause and effect, and the evolutionary principle of telos, or purpose. In the dialectic tension between these two principles lies the most eternally gripping questions of the human experience. Is the world a reflection of our current thoughts or desires? Do we create our reality, as many claim? Are the fortunes or tragedies of our lives a form of reward or punishment for our actions in the past? Or are they a result of natural cycles which govern the unfoldment of nature in all its manifestations regardless of merit? Kimba, cheers! In chapter 8, attention turns to the most deeply practical aspect of symbolist philosophy, the role of ritual. We will discover ritual to be far more pervasive than we had ever imagined and learn that all activities are magic of a sort. Dude, I was just saying that this week. I was just saying that today to Chrissy. Ha! Man. Chapter 8. Oh, wait, I just did that. Okay, the last third of this book looks more closely at the theoretical dimensions of the symbolist worldview, centering on the quintessential symbolist art, astrology. Chapter 9 asks what possible mechanism underlies the operations of astrology. The symbolist perspective hints at a possible answer to this question, and this in turn provides a point of departure for revisioning our relation to the universe. It could be, as is commonly held in New Age and even New Science circles, that everything is instantaneously connected to everything else. Could it be? Additionally, this chapter examines the possibility that astrology may be properly understood only as part of a broad network of interconnections in which the stars and planets are but small parts. Chapter 10 starts with a discussion of archetypes. In life is indeed a living book of symbols. If life is indeed a living book of symbols, then what is the language of that book? And what are the components of that language? Here also is an examination of astrology's symbols and those found in another of antiquity's great symbolic systems, the yogic philosophy of the chakras. Astrology and the chakra system, this chapter shows, are not truly separate, but deeply entwined in meaning and message. Together, they offer a way of unlocking symbolic clues to provide the foundation for a sacred psychology based on archetypes and universal processes. Dude, I already love this book. Holy majoli. But what lies behind the archetypes? Chapter 11 introduces the principle of proportion, or subtle geometry, as the source of meaning underlying all universal patterns. It examines the classical notion of the elements and the intriguing possibility that symbols may arise out of the architecture of consciousness itself. Finally, Chapter 12 reflects on the interconnections between symbolist ideas and contemporary culture. It begins with a look at Carl Jung's theory of synchronicity and how it contrasts with perennial symbolist ideas. It explores the ambivalent relationship between symbolist principles and modern science and examines the implications of the symbolist worldview in our continuing quest to understand and relate to the physical universe. Let us begin our exploration. Behind the door of coincidence is found a world of archetypal precedents. Behind the door of coincidence is found a world of archetypal presences and magical connections, a dimension of meaning that extends to every aspect of ordinary experience. With a subtle shift of vision, we can become fluent in a symbolic language both ancient and new, which emerges from our own personal waking dream. Wow! Right? Okay. Can this do what I want? It can. Okay. Chapter 1, The World as Dream. To the Magus, Is it magus? 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 Let's look up how we say that word. Okay. Magus. We'll just go for the definition and hopefully there'll be a pronunciation. Yes.
Magus.
Magus. Okay, cool. Hopefully I can keep that in my brain. Okay, magus. Okay, good. The lights are on. Okay. The world as dream. To the magus, there exists no accidental happening. Everything is established solidly by that law which the wise man discerns in happenings that appear accidental to the profane. The curve observed in the flight of birds, the barking of a dog, the shape of a cloud, are occult manifestations of that omnipotent coordinator, the source of unity and harmony. Kurt Seligman, Magic, Supernaturalism, and Religion. Oh, and then we've got this classic picture over here. Let's give it a look. Actually, like it's the one that I have on, it's that picture right there, but it's in black and white. Okay, so let me show you. How, oh yeah, right, like this. Oh, right, focus all the way down up and then we can see this beautiful black and white reproduction. Nice, right? Ooh, yeah, so each one's like a little excerpt. Ooh, 133, I like it. Okay. During a trip through the Southwest in 1982, I spent an afternoon with a Native American medicine man, a figure respected and feared by fellow villagers for his medicinal and magical knowledge. After talking for several hours about his practices and beliefs, he suggested we carry our conversation outside and take a walk along the edge of the village looking out over the desert. As we made our way along the sandy pathway, he asked about my life and interests back home in the Midwest. I started telling him about a project I was scheduled to become involved in. Exactly at that moment, I related my suspicion that his effort appeared to be taking a much different direction than I had originally intended. A bird conspicuously darted in front of us, letting out a sharp cry, only to change direction abruptly and make a sharp right turn. Noting this event, my companion cheerfully remarked, "See, there you are. Like you thought, things are going to turn out quite differently than you originally planned." When I asked him to explain himself, he told me the signs around us indicated this. The winged apparition, at the precise moment I spoke, provided a message about what would transpire for me. He went on to say such messages are around us all the time, but nowadays we have forgotten how to read them. We have lost the capacity to interpret the signs from nature, he said. So, right, like, I feel like I have to share the story about this weekend. On Saturday morning, I don't know, one day this weekend, I woke up for work and I was in the bathroom and I was standing in there, and then all of a sudden, this bird flew into my bathroom window. And I mean, I have experienced birds flying into my windows before, but never in the bathroom one. And like, this was a big bird, and it just like flapped like arms wide open into my window. And I was just like, wow. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, someone's coming to bring me a message today. Oh my gosh, I wonder who it is. And then my best friend from high school ended up showing up for breakfast that morning, and she lives in Florida. I'm in Ohio. It was amazing. So when I got there too, I told my sister and Johanna about the messenger, the bird, and they already both knew that she was coming. So, dang. They said that they couldn't believe that that's what I told them. It's cool. I like it. Okay, wait. I gotta look at my phone just so that it stops blinking. Oh shoot. Yeah, I hope that we keep connectivity. We've been having really like crazy weather here today. My brother-in-law just messaged me and asked me if we have power. Oh, not just, like a half an hour ago. I do have power. ultimate I have power. Okay. Yes, I do. Okay, I'm turning you over so I can't see you blink. Oh, speaking of phones, I went to T-Mobile and they put a new SIM card in my phone. I almost said vehicle. And so yeah, now I'm a 4G phone. Balls. But I mean, I'm thankful to be able to be connected, you know. So but at least I mean I didn't have to get a new phone, so that's good. And fingers crossed I make it through the rest of the year without having to get a new phone because I love my phone. It's amazing. So, to the contemporary mind, the notion there might be messages or signs within random events seems strange, even absurd. Yet for millennia, such perceptions were commonplace in societies around the world. Whether we read stories of Chinese scribes seeking guidance by interpreting sticks thrown randomly on the ground, or hear tales of ancient Romans scrutinizing omens in the entrails of the entrails of sacrificed animals on the eve of battle, or study accounts of Tibetan priests searching out candidates for the position of High Lama by gazing into the sacred lake, we find ourselves confronted with a way of viewing the world profoundly different from our own. As seen from this ancient perspective, reality is pregnant with hidden meanings and connections waiting to be unlocked by the discerning mind. Ooh. Yes, and so do you. Powerful! Symbolist thinking regards the world as a kind of language, with the people, animals, and events representing elements of a living vocabulary. A flower may be linked to a distant star, or an animal's movement entwined with the thoughts of a passing observer. Nowadays, we dismiss such notions as little more than remnants of a primitive age with a misguided predilection for confused categories and magical thinking. Predilection, like the predisposed. Okay. We tolerate that a dancer might have a pair of lucky shoes, but for most of us, the objects and random events of our daily life have no inherent meaning or significance. But are such ideas only superstition, with no validity or importance? Or can it be that in our wholesale rejection of the symbolist worldview, we overlook a level of insight hidden beneath the patent foolishness this way of looking at the world seems to imply? It is curious, despite this rising tide of scientific and secular thought, that many of the greatest creative and philosophical minds of recent centuries have continued to find value in symbolist ideas. Consider Emerson's statement: every natural fact is a symbol of some spiritual fact. In a well-known essay, the German philosopher Schopenhauer reflects upon the curious design that underlines the apparent accidents of our lives, as if to suggest a deeper organizing principle beyond the range of conscious perception. In a related vein, the philosopher and mathematician Gottfried Wilhelm von Leibniz developed a theory to explain how the outer events in our lives coincide with our inner development in a grand expression of pre-established harmony. While his contemporary Isaac Newton privately entertained deeply occult notions concerning the subtler forces and laws that underlie the phenomena of nature. As economist John Maynard Keynes observed, Newton saw the whole universe and all that is in it, as a riddle, as a secret which could be read by applying pure thought to certain evidence, certain mystic clues which God hid about the world to allow a sort of philosopher treasure hunt to the esoteric brotherhood. Some of that resonates with me, you know. In more recent times, psychologist Carl Jung coined the term synchronicity to define the puzzling sense of design that lies behind coincidences in our lives. While his Austrian forerunner in the study of coincidence, Paul Kammerer, Kammerer, used the term seriality. Seriality, to describe his own unique theories of this same phenomena. Seriality. Cool. Dude, code. You're going to love this. You should come listen, man. Okay. To describe his own unique theories of the same phenomenon. On studying Kammerer's research concerning coincidences, Albert Einstein concluded it was original and by no means absurd. And recently, a man regarded by millions around the world to be among the leading spiritual figures in our times, the Dalai Lama, openly professed a belief in omens and oracles. My grandma Bev met the Dalai Lama before she passed. I thought that was so cool. In the field of literature, we likewise find many of the greatest writers drawing inspiration from the same stream of thought. In his epic work, Ulysses, oh my gosh, I just put that in my cart last night, Ulysses. Irish novelist James Joyce crafted a vision of reality, underscoring both the archetypal undercurrents of ordinary experience as well as the intricately coincidental nature of events in our lives. In an article commemorating the centenary of Joyce's birth. Oh, okay. Dan Tucker offered the following comments on Joyce's symbolist perspective. And then this little bit right here is all in italics. There is something inside out about Joyce's books compared to other writers. Messiness and jumble and horseplay out in the open, the shape buried deep. What at first looks like a hodgepodge or a joke turns out to be an all interconnected, laced together with hundreds of tiny threads, insignificant scraps of memory and association. They keep popping up just often enough to imply some sort of design. Do you notice something about that comment? It applies our own lives. Life is like Ulysses that way, full of haphazard, pointless events and coincidences, variations on silly themes. But every so often, they hint at connectedness, structure, hidden meanings, often enough to keep us looking for those things. We don't want the things that happen to us to be meaningless, a mere succession of events. And just by their shape and texture, Joyce's books keep telling us that they aren't meaningless. In his book Coincidence, Robert Anton Wilson cites the following dramatic example of synchronicity from Joyce's life. Joyce once made a trip to visit the gravesite of a former romantic rival, Michael Bodkin, who had earlier courted Joyce's wife-to-be. Paralleling the events in Joyce's short story, The Dead, Bodkin died of pneumonia after singing love songs to his beloved in a rainstorm. On finding Bodkin's grave, Joyce was startled to discover the headstone immediately next to it bore the name J. Joyce, an incident which, Wilson suggests, left Joyce with a lifelong preoccupation with synchronicity long before Jung had himself labeled this phenomenon. And long before Jung, so many things, right? Okay, can this do what I want? Okay. In his book, right. A continent away during an earlier century, the grandfather of modern literary symbolism, Herman Melville, composed Moby Dick, one of literature's most enduring and insightful testaments to the traditional symbolist worldview. Really? Maybe I should read it. Huh. Really? Moby Dick. It's huge. Isn't it huge? Okay. All right. Not only the white whale, but every event and person in Melville's story operates on multiple levels. As he writes, "Hark ye yet again, the little lower layer. All visible objects, man, are but as pasteboard masks." Chapter 36. 36 chapters? No, okay, no. Symbolist thinking also captured the imagination of Goethe, Germany's greatest writer. Goethe, Goethe. Gonna see how we say it. Wolfgang. Oh, Van Gogh? No. Jonathan Wolfgang Van Gogh. Van Gogh. Okay, fine. Let's just say pronunciation then.
We are looking at how to pronounce
I
the
love
name
this
of
guy.
German writer and statesman. In German, his name would be pronounced something along the lines of Goethe.
Goethe.
However, in English, it is usually said as Goethe.
Goethe.
Or in German, Goethe.
Goethe.
Or in German,
Goethe. Wow, I was way off. Okay. Goethe. Okay, where am I? Goethe. Symbolist thinking also captured the imagination of Goethe, Germany's greatest writer. In the closing lines of his work, Faust, he declared, "All that is transitory is but a metaphor." Goethe, too, was intrigued by the sense of patterning which seemed to characterize many life events and speculated as to the possible source of this design. Amelia Jaffe writes, In Goethe's view, there exists an ordering power outside man, which resembles chance as much as providence, and which contracts time and expands space. He called it the daemonic and spoke of it as others speak of God. Oh my gosh. Weird. I just put this book in my cart that talks about listing all the demons and how they associate to different emotions and archetypes inside of ourselves. But then I'd put it on my buy for later because, yeah. What intrigued these masters of philosophy, science, and literature? To begin to understand their fascination, we need to familiarize ourselves with the essential presuppositions which underlie the symbolic or the symbolist outlook. A meaningful universe. Those who believe that the world of being is governed by luck or chance and that it depends upon material causes are far removed from the divine and from the notion of the one. Plotinus, Ennead 6.9. Or is it 4? Balls. Yeah, I feel like I gotta look for the Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3. The one is before it. Shit. Right. I'm having a brain freeze. Let me just actually pull up some of my tarot cards here. Pictures. Tarot decks. We'll just go with the regular Rider-Waite here. Let's just go into some swords. Let's look at the 4. Okay, so yeah, that's 6.9. Is that what I said? I don't know. 6.9. The 4 is before. Okay. After. Yeah, 6 plus 1. Okay. Like going that way. All right, back to you, Tails. Okay. I'm going to read that again just because it was so fascinating. Those who believe that the world of being is governed by luck or chance and that it depends upon material causes are far removed from the divine and from the notion of the one. Plotinus. To step into the worldview of the man or woman for whom the universe is meaningful is to enter a way of thinking that views all events and phenomena as elements of a supremely ordered whole. Like the intricately arranged threads of a great novel or myth, so the elements of daily experience are seen as intimately interrelated, with no situation or event out of place, no development accidental. In this way, even a seemingly trivial occurrence may serve as an important key unlocking a greater pattern of meaning. The passage of a bird through the sky, the appearance of lightning at a critical moment, or the overhearing of a chance remark. Such things are significant to the degree they are perceived as interwoven within a greater tapestry of relationship. Unlocking their significance requires an ability to perceive holistically how an individual event or detail fits into a larger set of experiences and developments. Underlying this view is a deep conviction that all events are themselves the manifestation of a greater, more fundamental ground of being. Oh, balls, one sec. Ew. I think I read it all. It's so beautiful. Yeah, okay. Underlying this view is a deep conviction that all events are themselves. Oh, wait. I think I read that too. The manifestation of a greater, more fundamental ground of being. In contrast with the modern mechanistic viewpoint, which regards nature as an essentially physical phenomena with no inherent meaning or consciousness, traditional symbolic thought perceives the world as suffused with mind, with all events and perceptible forms representing facets of a spiritual intelligence made visible. Boom! As the Swedish mystic and scientist Emanuel Swedenborg commented in Heaven and Earth, quote, "There is a correspondence of all things of heaven with all things of man," end quote. All things reflect the deeper ideas and esoteric principles of which they are a visible expression or signature and can thus be deciphered for their higher significance. For many cultures, this same idea found a more poetic expression in the belief that the world represents a kind of dream, similar in many respects to our fantasies during sleep. In Taoism, for example, there is a story of a man who dreamt one night he was a butterfly, only to discover upon waking he was a man. How could he be certain? He now wondered whether he was a man who had dreamt he was a butterfly, or a butterfly who was now dreaming he was a man. As the Buddha said, "Thus shall ye think of all this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream." Dude, if you know me, I reference that butterfly dream often. It's so good. And I think of it often, right? Dang, it's so good. For the symbolist, the recognition of the essentially dreamlike character of reality carries with it a series of far-reaching implications. For instance, if experience is a kind of dream with its own symbolic dimension of meaningfulness, then it must also be possible to interpret it like a dream. Events and circumstances unfolding outwardly are reflections of developments occurring on deeper levels of our own consciousness. As in the myths and sagas of antiquity, in which the important developments and beings encountered along the hero's or heroine's journey are ultimately recognized as guides and initiators in the unfoldment of a greater spiritual quest. So in our own life, the people, events, and creatures encountered can be seen as messengers bearing important clues into our own unfolding inner process. Damn, Bean, I feel like I could have wrote this book. Not that like I'm taking any credit away from this guy. I just feel like he's speaking my thoughts, right? Oh, also, saga. Sa, to give. Ga, to get. Saga, the telling of stories. In this way, a randomly observed auto accident may hold a clue to understanding some inner conflict or problem. An unexpected gift of flowers may reveal a subtle shift of fortunes, or a job application lost in the mail, or other recurring obstacles in the pursuit of a goal may be interpreted as reflecting a deeper lesson needing to be learned. Read as dream symbols. Ordinary occurrences yield depths of information, or read as dream symbols. Ordinary occurrences yield depths of information and teaching completely unsuspected by the untrained observer. Dang. A different way of seeing. Yet to unlock the symbolist worldview, the individual must enter into a completely different way of thinking. Our contemporary tendency, based on the scientific model, is to view the world as composed of literal facts best understood through the lens of mechanistic rationality. But for ages prior to our own, esotericists and mystics perceived the world through the lenses of metaphor and analogy, like a parable or myth that on subtler reflection is found to contain dimensions of meaning beyond the obvious. So, through this shift of perception, ordinary experience is transformed to reveal levels of information inaccessible to the rational mind. Bonsoir! Yay! Bonsoir! Is that how you say bonsoir? Welcome in. So good to see you, Genevieve. This book is the Tits McGee. It's so good, dude. It's so good. I'm loving it, basically. Basically, I'm loving it. Viewed in a purely literal or materialistic way, for example, the bird I saw while taking my walk with the medicine man who held no relevance to anything else occurring in my life, but when seen in terms of its subtler level of meaning, the abrupt switch in the direction of its flight was now analogous to the sudden switch of direction about to occur in another area of my life. Hence, an event may be seen as suggesting something deeper only when viewed metaphorically, in terms of its inner dynamic process. While largely dormant in the modern psyche, the ability to think metaphorically lies just below the surface of ordinary rational consciousness, as evidenced by our capacity for metaphor in ordinary conversation. Within the picturesque turns of speech we conjure up to describe situations and states of mind. Like, here's an example they're going to give right now. I was going to get another one. This job is like a millstone around my neck. Meeting you has been a breath of fresh air. Or it was so cold where they lived in Alaska that they spoke in icicles that they had to break off. That's what that lady, Clarissa Pinkola Estes, says in I don't know, maybe one of the last couple of readings that I did for her, and it's fabulous. We witness the psyche's intuitive capacity for perceiving the metaphoric subtext unfolding through our lives, a capacity innately rooted within the symbolic language of the human soul, in our DNAs, y'all, and our ancestral rivers. This shift of perception holds profound implications. In recognizing the metaphoric dimension of experiences, one steps from a framework of purely personal concepts and associations into one of objective or universal meanings. Like a Copernican revolution of the psyche, one's understanding shifts from the localized viewpoint of the ego to a more galactic, transpersonal point of reference. Having peeled away the layers of subjective notions, are awakened to the archetypal drama underlying ordinary experience. Immediate situations and objects are broken open, exploded by the infusion of cosmic significance. Boom! The longer at a no longer at a remove from direct experience. The sacred or archetypal is recognized as residing within the mundane, the general within the particular. At the same time, paradoxically, this awareness of the archetypal dimension of events in no way lessens or negates their concrete or mundane significance. Indeed, to the traditional esoteric mentality, there may be no clear-cut separation between the level of spiritual and material. As the religious historian Mircea Eliade has pointed out, Mircea, M-I-R-C-E-A, Mircea Eliade has pointed out, the fact that one's house holds archetypal importance as, say, a reflection of the entire cosmos does not make it any the less a construction which answers to the specific needs of its inhabitants in all the normal practical ways, which in turn demands the customary maintenance. Or, as psychologist Sigmund Freud more prosaically put it, when told that his cigar might be a phallic symbol, that may be true, gentlemen, but sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. I didn't know that one. Thank you. Oh my God. I don't know. I think they pick me. Or maybe spirit guides, right? They guide me to it. Plus, right? I mean, I did choose to purchase these books, but still, there's so many on the shelf to pick from. The laws of symbolist thought. A series of principles or laws are traditionally associated with the symbolist worldview, which are seen as governing the unfolding of events on all levels of phenomenal reality. Let us begin by focusing on three of the most important: correspondence, contagion, and condensation. Correspondence. Quote, a man must become a psychologist and a philosopher before he can understand correctly the great law of universal sympathy, not only astrology, but theosophy, and every occult science, especially that of attraction and repulsion, depend upon this law for his existence. H.P. Blavatsky. Right? She's so cool. She seems a lot less approachable to me, though. I don't know, maybe she just has so many volumes of work. As many anthropologists and even though I agree with what she just said, like totally, yeah, we all got to learn to be those priest kings. Yeah, philosopher priest kings, or we don't all got to. I mean, it's not everybody's path, right? As many anthropologists and philosophers have pointed out, the traditional symbolic worldview believes all things and events are linked by a hidden network of secret relationships, referred to by such terms as affinity, correspondence, analogy, sympathy, or similarity. Whereas classical mechanistic physics regards diverse phenomena as related to one another principally in terms of linear cause and effect, as classically illustrated in the interaction of billiard balls on a pool table. The esoteric view holds that phenomena can also be related through a subtler form of vibrational resonance or meaning. For the philosopher Plotinus, this was comparable to the way a note struck on one musical instrument caused a similarly tuned note on another instrument to vibrate sympathetically in unison. Boom. And if you get any of these vibrating things, Miss Six, Little Wing, awesome. This book is so good. Welcome in. Like when I would have my singing or my what is it? My tongue drum out. And I would just have it out. Even as I would speak, I could hear it resonating, which would then in turn resonate in my chest too. Alive. In a similar way, all things possess their own rate of vibration or tuning and are entwined with all other things by means of either sympathy, which is harmonious accord, or antipathy, inharmonious accord. For instance, while the elements of earth and water are compatible by merit of harmonious sympathy, water and fire are incompatible by merit of an innate discord. Amen. Yeah, she was. Oh my gosh. In the most infamous form, the concept of correspondence is familiar to us in sympathetic magic, as when a sorcerer or magician uses a drawing or effigy of an enemy to affect that individual for better or worse. The essential belief underlying this practice is that a hidden thread of connection exists between any thing or person and its representation. Examples of this sort can be technically classified as a correspondence of outer form, what some have called resemblance, or which I prefer to call literal or obvious correspondence. Beyond this more obvious expression, however, the principle of correspondence may assume subtler forms in which one finds a resonance not of outer appearance, but of inner meaning or quality. Here, the connection between separate events or objects is not readily visible, as in the case of the voodoo doll, which I was just thinking about. I mean, it's likely because that's what this all means, but and we've been reading about that in that seership book. The voodoo doll and the person it is modeled after, but is rather analogous in nature, perceptile only through a metaphoric shift of perception. An example of this type of correspondence can be seen in the way such seemingly diverse ideas as fire, knives, the color red, athletes, and all forms of combat can be classified under the category of Mars, the archetypal and astrological principle of force. Aries. While having little or no obvious connection, these varied ideas share an affinity of archetypal resonance, or what may be called metaphoric or subtle correspondence. Over time, this belief in subtle relationships gave rise to the elaborate tables of correspondences utilized by esotericists and magicians to both understand nature and work actively with her dynamic energies. Yeah. In addition to this distinction between literal and metaphoric correspondence, traditional esoteric thought also proposes a distinction between horizontal and vertical forms of correspondence. Ooh, getting out into the field. Horizontal correspondence can be described as the subtle relationship or affinity between two or more things on the same plane of experience, such as we find among fire, knives, war, the planet Mars, and the color red, all distinctively physical, all occupying the same place of reference. Vertical correspondence, on the other hand, refers to the subtle relationship between symbols across entirely different planes of being, as we find, say, between the physical symbol of fire and the higher psychological state of passion or anger, or between the physical symbol of a circle and the higher principle of spiritual wholeness. This in the form of correspondence specifically referred to by such hermetic sayings as above, so below, or the Kabbalistic statement, there does not exist the smallest thing in the world which is not itself attached to something on high, as is not found in dependence upon it. Oh, and let's try again. There does not exist the smallest thing in the world which is not itself attached to something on high, and is not found in dependence upon it. Ultimately, all physical forms and phenomena partake simultaneously in both orders of correspondence, vertical and horizontal. That is, everything or event on the physical plane is related in subtle ways to other physical phenomena, as well as to higher patterns on subtler levels of existence. For this reason, the esotericist might well conclude there is no event which is not in some way coincidental, insofar all things ultimately coincide. COINSIDE. Anybody feel like playing Battleship? Contagion. Quote, you are standing on the seashore and the waves wash up an old hat and an old box, a shoe, a dead fish, and there they lie on the shore. You say, chance, nonsense. The Chinese mind asks, what does it mean that these things are together? Carl Jung, The Symbolic Life. The principle of correspondence describes the relationship between phenomena arising from a subtle resonance of form or meaning. By contrast, the principle of contagion describes the link existing among phenomena by means of proximity. This is like that 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. as when two things, once in contact, retain a connection after being separated, even when far removed from one another in time or space. Everything's connected. As in the case of correspondence theory, the most familiar example of this principle is in sympathetic magic, as when a magician or sorcerer works ritualistically with an article of clothing or bodily part acquired from another person, such as hair or fingernails, in the belief it somehow retains a connection with the person to whom it belonged. Because it does. Here, too, we must distinguish between such crude examples of contagion and more subtle forms. This is also a good idea why it's this is also why it's a good idea to sage our houses and sage the places we are, our vehicles and our places of business, and our inner worlds too. Here, too, we must distinguish between such crude examples of contagion and more subtle forms. The following is an example of subtle contagion. In his book, Sacred Places, environmental psychologist James Ch.1 tells of being unexpectedly given a suit of clothes once owned by the singer Dean Martin. Wow! I would totally rock a suit by Dean Martin. Because of the timing of this gift in relation to career decisions he was pondering, Swan chose to interpret this event as informing him symbolically to move his work into a more public area, rather than continuing in a private, almost reclusive direction. In this case, the gift was significant not because it somehow linked Swan tangibly with the famed performer, or even because of some subtle energy transmitted to him from the singer via the medium of the clothes. Rather, because of a previous association with a famous entertainer, the acquisition of these clothes at this precise moment suggests a proximity, or contagion, to the symbolic principle of public exposure. Examples of this sort illustrate the principle of contagion in terms of a proximity through space involving elements that have been in touch with one another physically. Yet this principle has a temporal expression as well, in which two or more phenomena occurring within the same moment of time may be subtly linked to one another, long afterwards. For example, a man opens a business and discovers that his brother has won $1 million in a lottery on the very same day. While these two events are in no way physically connected, nor do they share a relationship of similarity or correspondence, the fact of their having occurred or touched within the same moment of time would be deemed significant by the symbolist, and might be read as reflecting positively on the impending fortunes of the man's business. The same idea can be seen in the belief that the circumstances of an individual's birth in some way foreshadow the character and impending destiny of the child, a notion explored in greater detail in Chapter 4. The principle of contagion also addresses the way forms or phenomena exert a subtle influence upon each other by merit of their closeness. For this reason, the ancients believed that a sacred relic was capable of affecting the environment and spiritual state of those who drew close to it, while the presence of an evil or unlucky person could rub off on the fortunes and moral character of the community around them. Boom. Right? Yeah, the energies we carry. By way of contrast, modern science can accurately measure the electromagnetic fields generated by household appliances or power lines, or gauge the radiation emitted by bodies of various kinds. Such forms of influence are tangible and easily analyzed using purely empirical methods. But how are we to measure in strictly quantitative terms such But how are we to measure in strictly quantitative terms such influences as described by the Chinese geomantic philosopher of Feng Shui, in which it is thought a mountain or rocky outcrop bearing the features of a particular animal can affect the destinies of nearby inhabitants in accord with the symbolic properties of that particular animal? Or the notion that The pollution of the water near a famed seaside gambling city portends that much of the money pouring through the city will likewise be dirty or illegal, as one practitioner of this ancient art contended. To comprehend examples like these, we must turn not to concepts of force or energy, but to notions of symbolism and the belief that forms the phenomena affect and the belief that forms and phenomena affect one another in terms of their deeper archetypal meaning. According to this outlook, all things are embedded within a larger symbolic field, in which each part exerts its own unique influence upon that greater continuum of meaning, less in quantitative and qualitative terms. Such qualities are not susceptible to empirical measurements, since they can be apprehended only through a metaphoric mode of consciousness. And then, condensation. Quote, to see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. End quote. William Blake. I've read that one before. So famous. Usually described as a subset either of correspondence or contagion theory, condensation is distinctive enough to merit discussion as a category unto itself. Simply defined, the principle of condensation, a term commonly associated with the theories of Freud, describes the way one thing or part encapsulates a larger whole or entity. Indeed, this principle may be seen as the defining concept of symbolism itself, with every symbol serving as a form which expresses a larger body of meaning, like a convex or fisheye mirror which reflects a much larger field of imagery. So, through apprehending a symbol, one can comprehend a far greater set of ideas or states of consciousness in which it is only a distillation. Bam! In Eastern literature, this concept finds eloquent expression in the mythical image of Indra's net, a cosmic web of gems in which each distinct part reflects all other parts of the web. In the occult tradition, this idea is also seen in the doctrine of the microcosm, the belief that each human being encapsulates the entire cosmos. Ooh, I just spit. It is this philosophical principle that underlies the ancient system of astrology, which holds that the universe outside of us is a reflection of the universe within. As Herman Melville expressed in Moby Dick, O nature and O soul of man, how linked art thy analogies! Not the smallest atom exists in matter that does not have its cunning duplicate in mind. Chapter 70. In fact, the principle of the microcosm can manifest itself in a great many ways. For instance, just as the human body can be seen as a microcosmic reflection of the entire universe, so in turn are various parts of the body condensations or microcosms of the entire body and personality. We are most familiar with this idea in the system of palmistry, which regards the hands as symbols of the entire individual. Though for the esotericists, there are many parts of the body which encapsulate the entire body, including the face, eyes, mouth, feet, and even the ears, to name the most obvious. Even in mainstream biology, we find a similar idea in slightly different form, in the underlying structure of DNA, in which every cell of the body encapsulates the genetic instructions for the entire body within proportions defined by the chemical components of the genetic strand. On a collective level, traditional societies viewed certain individuals as microcosms of the entire society. For example, the pharaohs of Egypt and the emperors of ancient China. Accidents, illnesses, or abrupt shifts of fortune in the lives of these figures were scrutinized for clues or omens to the fortunes of the greater nation. In the Arthurian tale of the Fisher King, ooh, this is cyclical too. The Fisher King keeps coming up in so many books. Whose illness mysteriously entwines with the desolate condition of his entire kingdom, it is ultimately his cure which serves to restore harmony to that greater kingdom. In its most degenerate form, This idea is also reflected in the notion of the scapegoat, in which one individual or animal is singled out as the embodiment of all the ills and misfortunes befalling a society and treated accordingly. Just as certain points or persons in space may encapsulate a larger reality, so certain moments in time can condense temporal trends or developments beyond the scope of a given moment. Consequently, an unexpected crisis may reveal itself as encoding a larger set of issues or archetypal dynamics taking place in one's life, or the events around a person's birth serve as a condensation within a single moment of time of the trends to unfold over the course of the individual's entire life. The principle of condensation likewise underlies most divinatory systems. In the way a chosen action in a given moment of time, such as the casting of runes, the random selection of tarot cards, or the vision seen when gazing into a crystal, is seen as offering a glimpse in miniature of a larger pattern in the life of the inquiring individual. As with correspondence and contagion, it is necessary to distinguish between literal and more metaphoric forms of condensation. For instance, a microfilm copy of the Bible may be described as a condensation of the larger Bible it reproduces, but in a very straightforward, photographic way. Compare this with the manner in which the physical body is esoterically said to condense the solar system and universe, with each organ relating to a subtle way to a particular planet in outer space. An individual may thus be said to contain the sun. Yet this does not take the form of an internal ball of hot gas, but rather of the physical heart, which in an analogous way serves as the center and regulatory life center of the human body. In such cases, the microcosmic connection between inner and outer, between the very small and the very large, is metaphoric, different from the photographic reduction seen in the example of the microfilmed Bible. With this basic philosophic vocabulary established, we turn now to the broader role the symbolist worldview has played in the historical unfoldment of human thought. And that was chapter 1. Dang! Ray Grasse. The Waking Dream, Unlocking the Symbolic Language of Our Lives. Boom! Quest Books. The Holy Grail. Dudes, I'm going to call it for the night. I'm going just for the intro and the chapter 1, and then we're going to go into chapter 2 the next time I pull this book out. But tomorrow's called Thursday. We'll see what I'll do it like I feel it, as we all do. Wow. Holy majoli. That is good. I loved it. So thank you everyone for hanging out with me, and I imagine that everyone will find this at just the right moment, symbolically, as they should. I love yous. I believe in us. And dang, summer's coming so fast. So let's do it to it. Every moment is a new moment. Thank you so much. Mwah. I'll see you so soon. I appreciate y'all's. Thank you. Laters!